Welcome to Fans Fight Back with myself, Martin Theobald, and with me from Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat, or ESBR, Laurence Gill. How you doing, Laurence?
Yeah, I'm all good. Ready to jump on the pod and talk some boxing. Absolutely.
Let's rewind it quickly before that. Let's tell people about Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat, so we don't skip over that. A media channel. So you are as much a fan, you're also a journalist of the sport. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mainly just a fan. Is probably the best way to look at it. That's essentially what Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat is. We do a lot of different stuff. So we do kind of the more classic kind of interviews, going to shows, press conferences, stuff like that. But I think quite a big selling point of our channel that you don't get with other channels that produce that kind of content is that we have sit-down chats like this all the time. Like I was just telling you earlier, already did one earlier tonight about Buatsi Richards, and we're just people who love boxing and love talking about it, and then we just bring ourselves to analyze it. But yeah, there's a written element. I write, interview, pundit. That's what ESBR does. Just sort of, if you want to just know or just want to hear people talk about boxing or talk to people in boxing with the interviewing side, that's what we do. Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat, ESBR. Just maybe have a watch and just talk to us on social media. That's one thing I love. Like when people reply to our tweets, we do a lot of polls on social media. We love kind of canvassing opinion. We ask a lot of questions. I'd often just jump in on my personal account and reply to them and just talk to people and get their opinion. I love knowing why people think certain ways about boxers. Even when I think differently, when I'm just interested, like, oh, why is that? Why you think that? So yeah, if you like chatting boxing, Eat, Sleep, Boxing, it might be worth checking out.
Well, that's a good sales pitch. I like it. Let's come on then to the world of boxing. From the weekend just gone, did you watch? I mean, we're going to come on to this as a theme later. There's quite a lot of boxing going on at the moment, and it's very difficult to stay up to speed with all of it. As an example, Friday evening, a Probellum show out in Dubai. Saturday evening, a Probellum show out in Dubai. Saturday evening, a Frank Warren show from Wembley Arena. How much of that did you catch?
Yeah, so I was at Wembley Arena for Avanesyan Mets, which was nice to be there. So I saw some Probellum on Friday, saw a little bit on Saturday. There was kind of a little bit of buzz about the not Martinez, Sonny Edwards fight. Not quite Edwards versus Martinez yet, but around ringside. So I saw bits of that as it was happening. But I saw a fair chunk of Probellum, and obviously I was there for Avanesyan Mets. I tried to keep on top of it because I like to and I like boxing, but also I do have to recognise that I do have to know what's going on to an extent. So yeah, I saw most of what went on. I didn't realise how early some of the Probellum cards started. I know we're going to come on to that, but I really like Bakadir Jalalov. I think he's a really top operator, and I think he's going to be really big in the next couple of years. And then I sort of stumbled onto Twitter at 3:30, 4 p.m. and seen that he'd already fought, and was quite put off by that. It was quite surprising UK time, which isn't even like necessarily a Dubai thing. I don't know if Probellum kind of pitched a little bit early. I assume they were trying to match sort of normal UK time, but they went a bit early on that. That was the one thing that kind of threw me about the Probellum cards, was that they end. Even like the main events, I feel ended more like before 10 p.m. off the top of my head, although obviously I was at Avanesyan Mets on the Saturday, so I'm not 100% sure on the timing.
Sonny Edwards was about 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't know why they've done them so early, because that's not like I don't know if that's maybe it's like a local law thing with the Middle East. They don't want them on too late, but you'd think Probellum would be pitching to go for a standard UK prime time. So
yeah, unless they're trying something else, trying to avoid the traffic of the Frank Warren show, and I mean. It's interesting. Let's come on to it does Dubai work as a concept? So it's not their first show, but one of their first shows from Probellum. Out in Dubai in a tennis arena, I think conservatively 50% full. Shown at an awkward time in the UK because if you're starting it at 3 o'clock, you're meeting all the traffic of the football on a Saturday afternoon, which nobody really wants to be doing. It's on Eurosport, which a lot of people will have kind of forgotten exists as a channel, but it's work in progress. Like, how many out of 10 would you give it a present, and what do you think they need to do to get it higher?
It's not ideal. There are those problems that you kind of laid out, and like I alluded to, the main thing, the timing for me was just threw me out completely. Giving a rating out of 10, probably, I'd say 5. I'm not just trying to even kind of be boring and just go straight down the middle, just in the sense that there's pros and cons. Dubai, I don't hate something a bit different. Honestly, 50% full. Like, I'll just say it right now. As at Avanesyan Mets, that was not massively full, to be honest. But burning some bridges with Queensbury there, maybe. But let's just
it's fine. They showed it on TV. The lights.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it was on BT. A large chunk of Wembley Arena was cut off in terms of just curtained off, and even within the chunk that they were available for, it wasn't massively full. So I don't really particularly hold that against the Dubai shows in any sense, because it's something that happens in the UK as well. Dubai, I don't. I like the actual place Dubai and kind of areas like that. UAE, I personally would not have much interest in sort of going there on holiday, even though I know they're very touristy. So I might imagine that I'm sort of more inclined not to dislike them, but I honestly don't mind it. Actually, I don't mind it as something a bit different and actually a little bit exotic. Like, oh, it's quite interesting that it was in Dubai. Like, you know, when when Joshua fought in Saudi, or when they did the World Boxing Super Series there, or there was Amir Khan versus Billy Dib, kind of a random fight. But there you go. I think they were all in Saudi. It's something just interesting, you know. It does add a little bit of interest to it. So I don't mind that it's in Dubai. Actually, I kind of like that as just a little bit of a, like you said, a selling point, something a bit different. Yeah, the timings really threw me off. Like you said, you're going to catch the football. Obviously, maybe they were being really kind of thinking this weekend it was mainly FA Cup stuff. There was a lot less Premier League, but I doubt they planned that, to be honest. I assume they the date quite far in advance. I doubt they were kind of tracking when they're going to put the Premier League and when they're going to do the FA Cup. But yeah, I don't like the timing. It being early is really odd, especially when you're going to do a Friday show. If you're pitching it at the UK, people are still going to be at work at 3 o'clock. So I don't really know what you're doing there. But I don't mind it, and I think it's good that they are operating and they got their Channel 5 contract, so they're going to be on. That's Wasserman. Sorry, they got their Eurosport contract, which is good that they're televised. Obviously, it's not the biggest channel, but it is a channel that lots of people have access to. Off the top of my head, some of the slightly more basic Sky Virgin packages.
There's also the Eurosport Discovery BT merger that is ongoing in terms of talks. So it wouldn't be entirely surprising if they merge all of their sport content into one. Why would you keep 2 channels if you don't have to? So that wouldn't be hugely surprising down the road, and then maybe Probellum end up on BT Sport as a by proxy of the merger, perhaps. And you know, it's the stuff about it being in Dubai. You know, there's lots of interesting theories as to why that might be, none of which I am going to put my neck on the line and discuss. So I'm sure people can assume. But actually, in terms of the fights that went on, that main event on the Saturday night, you had Regis Prograis versus Tyrone McKenna and Sonny Edwards against Wasim. That's a decent enough card. Like, if that was a headline of a Saturday night on BT, Sky, DAZN, I think we'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. Obviously, Regis Prograis is really kind of stalled since the loss to Josh Taylor, but people forget how close that fight was. To be honest, I think if that fight's not in Scotland, there's a very good chance it's a draw. Or
it was in London. It was at the O2. I was there.
Yeah. Sorry, it wasn't at.
But you'd still argue.
Yeah, if it wasn't in the UK, I think Prograis may well have walked away with the win. Like, for me, I thought he was better than even after the loss to Taylor, thought he was better than Ramirez, the other champion that Taylor eventually conquered. So I really like Prograis, even though he has stalled and people are quite critical of him right now. So I was happy with that, and he looked good. He looked like he was back in form. And yeah, Sonny Edwards had a great performance, and you know, he had kind of, I was going to say he had beef with his opponent. Sonny Edwards has beef about everyone, so I suppose that's not really
anyone with a Twitter account. Anyone with a Twitter account, Sonny will have beef with them.
But that was a great fight, and you know, that little bit of kind of back and forth did help sell it. You know, it's only, as I said, with Edwards, it's anyone, and people probably see that slightly cynically, but still, you know, it's a bit of something to latch onto. So yeah, those are 2 good fights, and even the undercard, someone like Jalilov moving up, that was on the Friday card, I believe. Yeah. But still, you know, those fights worked in there. They're some decent fights, you know. Considering right now, I think even in the last kind of 6 months since we've really kind of moved away from lockdowns hampering boxing, I feel like undercards have been really poor in the UK. And actually looking at those ones, Probellum ones, they would not at all some of the worst undercards you see. They really weren't. Like the actual events were, and like the cards overall, you said like Sonny Martinez, Sonny Edwards. I don't know why I keep calling him Martinez. Sonny Edwards. Maybe I'm just revealing how much I want the Edwards Martinez fight, but Sonny Edwards as a main event on a Saturday night fight night, absolutely on free TV, absolutely. He's a British world champion. Yeah, he's one of the lighter weights, which I know they say tends to put off the kind of mainstream audience, but for boxing fans, he's a big draw in the UK, and you're gonna want to watch him because he's a really, really class operator. You know, think what you want about the Twitter stuff, but I think he looked really good against Wasim in there. I mean, perhaps not the best opponent, but you know, he still has to get out there and win and still look good. So yeah, I'm not super hostile to the cards and to what they're doing. I think it's decent.
I think BT / Probellum / whoever we're going to call it, if that does end up happening in terms of the Eurosport merger into BT and you end up with one channel, then it would be beneficial to me to partner Sonny Edwards with a monster, be that Jalalov, be that Joe Joyce, be that Daniel Dubois, like, because what he does is so good, but as you sort of alluded to there, is that people may not necessarily buy into it because he's an 8-stone man, and you kind of watch it going, you know, there will be some observers that do that. Whereas if you partnered him with an absolute monster heavyweight and just had the two of them continually on shows together, I can see it would draw more eyes and maybe more appreciation in time to Sonny. And why not Jalalov? You know, he stopped Sokolowski. That man's ridiculous. I like him.
Yeah, I like the idea. I do agree. Like, yeah, obviously, as a promoter, and when you're kind of crunching the numbers, the weight thing is a massive issue. You know, the numbers are there that people just don't tune into the lighter weight. So I understand if you're actually putting on shows, you know, your money's on the line. You've got to make it work. So yeah, I really like that idea. I like the idea of building it with Jalalov. I think you could, if you were smart with Jalalov in the UK, you could make him into a big star, as in just like a monster that's kind of coming up and everyone's scared of, basically. The only thing I think that could hamper him is if he just can't get any good fights at all. If people really, really duck him, is where it might kind of make it struggle to get what he wants. But the guy's 6'7", 6'8", like, you know, he's as big as any of those big top heavyweights like Joshua Fury. He can sell, you know. He's a scary man, and I like the idea of pairing them. That's fun. But yeah, building that stable. I think what you're kind of alluding to is that those fighters that you get on a Probellum card, like there's a few other companies that are doing that quite well right now, where you know the kind of fighters you're going to get, and you know what they're going to put on. So you know Jalalov's going to produce a big heavyweight knockout. You know Sonny Edwards is going to put on a boxing masterclass, stuff like that, and kind of pushing the stable. Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, actually, and like you said, matching the heavyweight with the smaller weights, so there's kind of something for everyone is probably the best bet. Yeah.
And you'd end up with a chirpy little man in Sonny Edwards. And then I always said this with Joe Joyce, like Sam Jones was almost like Paul Bearer to The Undertaker in like old school WWF stuff, that you'd end up with like a voice piece for a very scary individual in the background. Like, let Sam Jones be the voice piece for Jalalov. Let him go out just calling out everybody. Jalalov doesn't need to ever say a word. Just go out and ice people continuously. I think Sam Jones is the ideal person to do that. He's had his practice with Joe Joyce. Let him be the voice of Jalalov in the UK. I think he could sell. I think there's mileage in him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. I like the idea. I did notice when you said pair Sonny Edwards up with a big guy, I got some pro wrestling vibes from that. I wondered if you were going to make that analogy, but yeah, definitely. I mean, Sam Jones is the perfect thing they need for Probellum in making a mark, someone really vocal who already has the name and people know of, and has been, you know, pushing fighters. He is someone, I feel like even people who aren't, you know, overly keen on Sam Jones in boxing always admit that he just goes to bat for his fighters constantly. You know, that I think that's sort of undebatable. So to do that on the slightly promotional side, slightly different, I think could just really, you know, sell, like you said, sell. It'll make money. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, he's got that same energy Hearn had a few years back. Hearn's a little bit more cynical, skeptical these days, you get the impression, whereas Jones is more kind of, let's just go out and do everything at once and try and take over the world. Yeah, I mean, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but nobody is, I suppose. Hearn's managed to ostracize himself from certain areas of boxing over time, but he's still got a loyal following. And, that's ultimately what Sam will be looking to build, is that loyal following, build it for Probellum and their shows. They got one in Newcastle, haven't they, on Friday night with Lewis Ritson.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was Friday, actually, off the top. I knew that it was going on, but I just kind of assumed it was Saturday. There you go. That's me probably not paying enough attention. Although, I like the idea of it being on a Friday, moving away from the Saturdays. We saw that with the Akoli card a few weeks ago. I'm quite happy with that. I probably prefer a Sunday to a Friday off the top of my head, just as I said, with things with like people working and stuff like that. But yeah, I've seen that Lewis Ritson. That's a good one. Obviously, a regional draw there. Slightly, I don't know how exactly they're going to balance the thing with these Dubai shows and then these kind of like smaller UK regionals. It seems like a big disconnect to go for that kind of, as I said, that exotic Dubai, whoa, it's the Middle East, and then also they're just doing like a Friday night Newcastle show. It's odd, but I'm sure there are people trying to make that business work. I'm not trying to say that that's like some kind of stupid idea. Like, I'm sure there are very smart people working there that know what they're doing. So it seems weird, but maybe they'll make it work.
Yeah. So I mean, it's almost indicative, the fact you were saying about you thought it was Saturday night, it's actually Friday night. There's so much boxing on that it's hard to keep track of. I didn't know that Eurosport's show started early on Saturday. It was only due to Twitter and flicking through and finding out. It's like, crikey, it's about 6:30 and the co-main event's on. It's almost, let's come on to it as a theme before we go on to the weekend's action. That is there too much boxing to be sustainable and to be worthwhile? And worthwhile, I use kind of in air quotes to some degree, but I looked into it. This weekend in the UK alone, there are 11 boxing shows. In total, there are 78 fights. But that's mad. When you think of the number of officials, so, officials come up for criticism and debate relatively often. A lot of them are going to be working, a Friday night show. I think there's another Friday night show. Then they have to work the Saturday night show. Long hours under those lights. It's draining. It's mentally quite tiring. They've got other jobs. That's a hard sell to anyone to keep doing that. But 11 shows across a weekend is mad, especially when you've got two that then clash in terms of the Sky and DAZN one, in terms of televised events. Is there too much? Is it, as boxing fans, is it because January didn't happen, so they've had to squeeze it all into 11 months now rather than 12? And with a World Cup coming up towards the end of the year, no one's going to want to touch a weekend when that's on. There's lots of factors at play, but it just feels like a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot, and I do think the January thing probably plays a part in the sense that boxers have got to get out and fight, and if there are a lot of boxers who have all wanted to fight January, because they fought their younger fight, maybe they fought kind of October, November, and they were like, right, back out in a couple of months, and that just adds to the schedule. There's more boxers that need 12 months of fights in 11 months. Is it too much? See, you kind of touched on the main thing for me there. Is it too much? There's the big division between the televised and the untelevised. In terms of untelevised events, I don't think you really have too much. If they're profitable, I mean, that's a great thing. I think we should be absolutely cheering on the fact that there's plenty of small hall shows going on, and that it seems to be that they can turn a profit and be successful and give chances for professional boxers to get out there and fight, and hopefully make some money as well if the show does well.
And they've got a different marketplace to Sky and DAZN. The small hall model is friends and family, and I'm actually down at York Hall Saturday night for a Goodwin boxing show. A few area title fights on there, about 4 or 5 50-50 kind of decent fights. Really, I look forward to it. I've not been to a small hall one in quite a while now, but it means I'll miss all the other stuff that's on because there's so much on. I'll be watching via Twitter, but I mean, do you think there's any cynicism around with Sky going up against DAZN? And we can touch on Zach Parker versus Demetrius Andrade falling on the same weekend as Buatsi versus Craig Richards. Is this just survival of the fittest? Is this just promoters, be it Eddie, be it Sky, be it BT? Are they just like, let's see who lives, let's see who survives at the back of this, and trying to suffocate the others?
I'm sure that's their calculation. They're probably, just thinking we need to try and take the viewers away. You know, we need to try and scupper the rest. Obviously, as I alluded to, the clashes with the televised shows is where I think it gets bad, because it's just bad for fans, because you can't watch both. I mean, you can kind of flick between, and I've done that in the past, and it's a bit kind of clunky and actually quite unenjoyable. You know, God forbid we get 2 pay-per-views at the same time. We had that with Chisora White 2 and Warrington Frampton. I think we're probably going to end up having that again. But they said that Buatsi Richards and Parker Andrade, that's 2 fights I'd love to watch. Now I'm going to have to pick between them. When it comes to the televised, it's annoying as well. The thing is, I understand, because it's a business and they're trying to make the right business decision, and I don't think you can really begrudge them that, in the sense that, you know, that's what they want as a business. They want to try and, you know, beat the competition, so to speak, and make money. But as a fan, that's where you maybe say, it's too much, in the sense that I don't want to have to miss shows. I want to be able to watch live Zach Parker, Andrade, and Buatsi Richards. I think most boxing fans probably do. You know, does anyone want them to go on at the same time and not be able to watch both? It's sad, but then, as I said, what's the solution? You know, even how would you even enforce some idea of trying to stop clashes? The board, but then how big of a show would have to be that you can't have a clash. There are some televised shows that, you know, aren't even huge, but there's smaller cards on BT. There's one in Telford in the middle of April, and there's those smaller boxer cards where they do the tournaments. You probably wouldn't on the board to be saying they definitely can't happen on the same night, because then it's just how do you even find the right dates? But I don't know the answer, basically. I don't like it, but I don't have an answer, which is, you know, not the best thing, because I don't want to just be pointing out problems without solutions. But I wonder if it is best to actually kind of counter program. So is it actually better for Warren and DAZN to go head to head with Buatsi Richards and Parker Andrade? Surely it just affects both events, you know?
Yeah, nobody gets 100% of their viewership. Nobody does. You're both going to suffer for it. I fail to believe there's no other weekends on the calendar that these events could have run at. And also, as a ticket buying fan, I would go to one of those, but I don't want to go to one of them. I'd rather sit at home and keep up to speed with both of them via different devices if I need to, or flicking between channels. But it does put me off going, because I don't want to be stuck at one and not be able to view the other. And are there enough boxing fans between Derby and London to fill the O2 and Pride Park?
I would probably say not on that regard. It's pretty much going to be the O2, isn't it, for Buatsi Richards? I did actually earlier today have a quick look. There's nothing at the O2 scheduled for the weekend after the 21st. And I just think I know you've probably planned for that date, and obviously I'm not saying, you know, the amount of time Buatsi Richards probably been negotiated for. I doubt that, you know, Eddie in the last couple of days has gone, we'll put it on the same day as Parker to try and spite them. But you just think, could you maybe just not knock that a week back? Just do it on the 28th. What I've looked, the O2's free. The fight's almost definitely going to be the O2. It's technically not confirmed yet, but it looks that way, absolutely. Why not? You know, just for... It's also a little bit annoying in the sense that the promoters often talk a big game in terms of being for the fans, but then you see that action and you're like, well, you know, it doesn't look that way from the clashes. And I understand they'll say, well, this date worked for XYZ reason, and we have to go with what's best for our own business. I'm like, I get it, but like you said, it doesn't make you. It makes you not want to go to one. There are people who will be at the O2 who probably would have gone to Pride Park if that O2 show it was on. Not like a huge amount of people, but a significant chunk. So that's tickets lost both ways in terms of, you know, filling them up, like you said. I think the O2 probably gets close to full with Buatsi Richards, depending on the undercard. Maybe if it's a decent undercard. The Derby Stadium is going to be hard to fill in the sense that, from what I understand with Derby currently, they're not even filling their stadium for their games. Obviously, there's a huge kind of administration situation there. I imagine there's probably some fans boycotting who might still go to the Parker fight. But if you need to sell all these tickets in big venues like the O2 and Pride Park, you're missing out on that chunk that are at the other show that would come. So it's just as I said, I don't have a solution, but it's really frustrating. And I suppose the solution would be fans actually trying to demand this. I say this with a lot of things in boxing, like with judging. Like when there's bad judging, I feel like the best thing you can do is just all fans just keep talking about it and keep saying how it's wrong and something has to change. And then the media will hopefully reflect that. I suppose you say that's our job, but there you go. So probably that's the solution. Actually, I said I don't have a solution. The only solution I think of is just try and kick up a stink, basically, a bit like we're doing now, because it is annoying. And it's as someone, as you know, there aren't a massive amount of huge boxing fans like there are for sports like football. There's a lot of potential audience. You know, when someone like Anthony Joshua fights, everyone knows about it. But these smaller shows like Parker Andrade, even Buatsi Richards, a lot of people who might call themselves boxing fans won't have a clue that those shows are happening. You know. And so if you want to fill them up and you want to get the best viewers for them and you want to grow the sport, don't have them against each other and tank each other's events. You know, the way the promoters can make the most money is getting new fans in. You know, for all promoters, the best thing they can do, because there are all these people who will buy an Anthony Joshua pay-per-view who could be drawn further into the sport of boxing. You know, they're not against it; they watch the big fights. So bring those people in with good cards, good marketing. You know. You say about putting away the belts and don't touch on sanctioning bodies, but talking on this regard in terms of scheduling, don't clash your shows and just try and make the best possible shows. And the thing is like I said, the 28th, we'll probably get there May 28th. There won't be anything. Yeah. Off the top of my head, there's not. There's Tank Davis versus Romero in the US, but that's not going to clash anything time wise with a UK show in terms of ticket sales or even TV viewers. And it's just like. If we get there to May 28th and there's not a show on DAZN or BT, I will actually be a bit angry in the sense I just think why. Yeah. Like more so, as I said, with Pride Park, with the football games, it's harder to definitely get on certain dates. But because the season will be over. I assume 25th of May will just be as the season ends. So 28th over. Yeah, exactly. So, and as I said, I checked with the O2. It doesn't look like anything's scheduled. Well, no, there's nothing scheduled yet. Maybe there's something in the works, whatever. But it is just so frustrating. And as I said, I think it stops the growth of the sport, which is the way these promoters will make the most amount of money. So if they are if they are just thinking, listen, this is a business to me, this is about making the most money, maybe actually in the long run you're hurting yourself.
The only logical solution to me is nobody buy tickets. Nobody buy tickets to either of them. Like, leave them as empty venues for the night and stay at home and watch both of them. And you'll soon find that promoters don't clash them anymore. Because, like, if that's the message they get, is that people won't turn up because they want to watch both, brilliant. But, yeah, fair play to Frank as well, by the way, for hiring out Pride Park for Zach Parker versus Andrade. Andrade doesn't really sell in America. Zach Parker... He's kind of headlined a couple of shows around, I don't know, like maybe Telford or whatever, or maybe small Derby ones. I'm not sure. That's a hell of an ask to get them to sell out Pride Park for that. It's like, and when you partner that with the fact that they got Wembley Arena for Avanesyan, despite the fact that not many people turned up and they still ran the show, I like that. It's not always going to be cost beneficial, but longer term, if you're building Zach Parker, if he goes and beats Andrade and he's in line for Canelo, they'll get all that money back in due course, whether they get the Canelo fight or not. But I like Frank for investing in those opportunities for fighters. It's good.
Yeah, I like the idea. I like, although the way it's being talked about quite a lot, part of me wants to say that it's kind of slightly cynical, but I'll believe that that's not the case. They're giving the £10 to Derby. Obviously, they're in administration. That's a really nice touch with the fact it's at the stadium. Like, they could have easily not done that, and I don't think anyone would have really batted an eyelid if they just ignored the administration situation. That is a nice thing. I know what you mean, especially as well. That's a great thing for Zach Parker. Like, he's going to be able to say, I had that fight at Pride Park, and they're going to, if he wins, that's going to be a kind of crowning moment, and it's going to be in Pride Park. I agree in that sense. So yeah, I like using the big venues. Why not? But also then when the venues are a little bit empty, it can sometimes feel, if you're actually there, a little bit soulless and a little bit quiet. Yeah. So if it's not very full at Pride Park, I'm hoping that it will still be a good night. Because it's hard, because they've opened the whole thing. They are aiming to fill it up, as Frank Warren's saying. it means that you could get a load of people kind of up high in the cheaper stands and then there's more gaps, whereas if you close them off and try to, open fewer seats,
I've been to Warren shows where I bought a ticket at the back and they bring you down to the front. Don't worry about
that. Okay, fair play.
That's a tried and tested method.
Yeah, well, hopefully they do that. I guess again, you might see that as cynical, but honestly, if it helps the atmosphere, good.
Why not? I mean, I think they did similar for Bellew Macabu at Goodison Park. That wasn't a sellout as such, but they just squeezed the numbers so that they, made it more compact, and ultimately gave it more of that atmosphere. I think why not? I hope they do great numbers for Zach Parker's benefit, for Frank's. I'm worried that they will, but it's not my money, so I don't care really.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it does. I've seen some people are saying that they'll do quite well and kind of almost fill it up. Some people are saying they'll struggle to get like 8,000. I've seen people saying, so I'm interested in just seeing how it plays out. But yeah, I hope it does well, because I don't see why as a boxing fan you would be wanting shows of put on by any promoter, whichever promoter you prefer to do badly, really. Like, even if you don't like a promoter, like, think about the fighters. Do you want the shows to do badly and the fight pay to get hit? I just think I just find that a bit just kind of cringy, basically. If you're like, oh, can't wait for this Pride Park show to do awful, it's like, why do you want that? Yeah. So yeah, the other thing, like you kind of alluded to, you want it to do well, and as I said, for the fighters, basically, because it's easy to think like, oh, it's all the promoters kind of hoovering up all the money in boxing, but boxing, because of the way it works with the competition in promoters, generally fighters get quite a large chunk of revenue. Obviously the big comparison is MMA. Everyone says, oh, fighters in the UFC get paid so little. That's just that's basic supply and demand. The UFC has a monopoly. Fighters can't go anywhere else. Whereas the thing we have that's good in boxing is that competition being promoted just pushes those purses up. So I don't want any shows to do badly, as I just said. So I hope Richard's Buatsi does well. I hope Zach Parker does well. Like you said, though, it would be nice to try and push promoters to not clash, especially right now. Obviously, I understand there's been a little bit of fragmentation. As Matchroom moved away from Sky, it basically brought in Boxer as a new player, because they now have the Sky kind of backing. Whereas before there was two, so now there's three. It's kind of essentially because DAZN entered, but it feels more like Sky are the ones bringing the new things, because you still see it as Matchroom.
Yeah.
So I understand why there's now more kind of clashing, but yeah, it's weird. I want all the shows to do well, but I also want promoters to stop clashing. And in a way, both of those things can't happen. So I admit, like, now I'm contradicting myself across two answers, but I still do want the shows to do well, and I still do want no clashes. So
I want boxers to get paid. I'm not really bothered about the finances of the promoters and how well they do out of a show. If it's a short-term pain, if people don't buy tickets in return for longer term, they stop clashing shows. That's what people should do, in my view. Teach them a lesson. Speaking of close shows clashing, so this weekend we'll talk predominantly about the Matchroom one. So you've got Kiko Martinez defending his world title. It seems like he only won about a week ago against Kid Galahad, but he's defending it against Josh Warrington, who it seems like only about a week ago was getting his head cut against Brian Lara, or vice versa. I can't even remember which way around it was. It seems like a very quick turnaround for this fight.
Yeah, I do agree with that, especially with Martinez. But also then the first Warrington-Lara fight, to me, also feels like an age ago, when it was, I think about a year ago. I don't know, it's a weird thing. Like, I definitely agree Kid Galahad getting knocked out doesn't feel that long ago, but the first Warrington-Lara fight does feel a long time ago to me. It's a bit of a weird one, yeah. I like that they made it quick, though, in a way. I feel like it was announced, off the top of my head, pretty quick. This fight was announced very soon after Kid Galahad lost the world title. But in terms of Warrington, I don't think it's. I feel like that second Lara, especially considering it was only 2 rounds and he wasn't the one who got his head cut. I don't think it's like too soon. I don't have any worry about kind of like an activity if that's what you're getting at. But yeah, it does seem like a quick turnaround. But in a way, I quite like that they made it quick.
It's probably quicker for Kiko because he he was getting beaten up by Galahad until he landed that overhand right, and then he went and landed it again. It feels to me, I don't mean this in a detrimental way, more a factual way, feels to me a little bit like a belt grab. That quick, Martinez has got that belt. It would be beneficial to get it back onto Warrington, especially as we're now approaching the summer and we can start to use Ellen Road again. We can start to use the cricket ground. Get it off him as soon as possible and then make those big fights for Warrington, because he hasn't got long left in his career, has he really now? He's been, every Warrington fight feels like a hard fight. Because he doesn't have that ferocious power, he kind of ends up doing lots of rounds at a high pace that you kind of think that doesn't last forever, surely. To me, it feels a little bit like get that off Kiko, give it to Josh, and then let Josh kind of ride out the rest of his career, hopefully in as big a fights he can make at Ellen Road, the FD Arena, the cricket ground, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I see that, and I do somewhat agree, but I think there is a bit more interest in the fight in that sense that, like, the fact Warrington's coming off the 2 Lara fights that were very poor, and Martinez, while he was losing that fight to Galahad, did get the knockout and get the victory. There is intrigue there for me, the fact that they're both coming off unusual performances, one bad or 2 bad for Warrington, 1 good for Martinez. I do definitely think that is essentially the plan. The fact that it went to Warrington and there was no rematch for Kid Galahad, it's quite telling, perhaps, that it might be something like that. But I don't think the fight is completely kind of cut and dry, mainly because, as I said, Warrington in his last 2 fights looked poor. Like you said, he in the past he's had that high pace and that a lot of rounds, and I've always really liked Josh Warrington. But, well, I still like him, but before those 2 Lara fights, I thought he was really top quality in the sense that while he had that kind of hard pace and he was kind of a bit of a pit bull coming forward, but what I think he did really well was, it wasn't quite hit and not get hit, it was hit more than he got hit. So if you look at that, like those first few rounds with Frampton, people are like, oh, it's just a tear up and Warrington hurt him when Frampton didn't think he could hurt him. If you watch those exchanges, actually Warrington was quite clever in making sure he hit Frampton a lot more than he got hit. I think that's a big part of the reason why Frampton was so much more hurt. It wasn't that, oh, no one thought Warrington had punch power, and actually he does. Like, I think that was part of it, but I feel like Warrington, he had that pace and he hit a lot. Whereas in those Lara fights, he just looked really, really pedestrian, and he got hit so much. That was the main thing for me. Like, the second Lara fight was obviously weird with the cut, and I don't think it was as awful as a performance as some people make out, but he still looked slow, and it's like someone like Lara, Warrington should barely be getting touched by. But in both fights, he was just trading and getting hit with shots. So if we see the old Warrington, Kiko Martinez probably isn't going to touch him. But if he still looks a bit slow, we've seen Martinez has the knockout power, so he could stop him. It could be another loss for Josh Warrington. So it's a belt grab. I don't know how I feel about that statement. I see the logic for it, but I think it almost, while it might be true, the implications of calling it a belt grab, I think, undersells the fight a bit, because I actually think it's intrigue, as I said, because of where they're both coming from. Yeah, it's easy to think Josh Warrington walks it, but then you would have thought Josh Warrington walked the first Lara fight, and then probably, by logic, you might have thought he walked the second Lara fight. So
yeah, we've since seen Lara going around folding people up like deck chairs in America, haven't we? He's awful. I think it'll be a fun fight. I think it'll be a brilliant fight, and purely because you look at Martinez, that man's tough. He's tough as nails, and like he's not going anywhere early. And so Josh is, it could be a real acid test as to what Lara took out of Warrington in that first beating, particularly. What did he take out of him? Because Kiko's going to be there for a long time, because he's made of Spanish nails, and you can't really hurt the bloke.
Are they harder than British nails? He's made of Spanish nails.
Yeah,
that means he's extra hard.
Proper Brexit nails. That's what Kiko Martinez is. He's got different EU standard.
Oh, right. Well, I don't know about Spanish nails, but I agree with that. I do think, as you said, I like the idea of saying it's an acid test. I think that's very true. I think Josh Warrington will pass that test. I think, actually, on the mental side of it, I think the win over Martinez that Warrington has will probably act as kind of a big confidence booster, in that although they actually had a relatively close fight the first time, the fact Warrington thinks, right, I've beaten this guy before, I can do it. When in that second Lara fight, it looked like he was, nervous. He was probably thinking, God, I cannot lose this. I cannot lose this. I think that will help us see some more of the old Warrington. Like I mentioned, it'll be fast. He won't get hit too often. I think we will see quite an impressive performance from Warrington. Although, as you said, yeah, Martinez is going to be absolutely there. No, I don't think it's going to be easy. I have actually previously made a prediction for this fight on ESBR. I said I was quite specific with it, which I don't normally do, but I said a 9th round body shot for Josh Warrington. Knockout,
Like it.
9th round knockout body shot by Josh Warrington is what I'm going for. So I think it'll go 9. I think it'll be a tough fight. I think Martinez will almost just sort of come forward, bite down on his gum to shield and go for it. That's not to undersell his boxing ability, but I think he will. I should say the loss to Warrington, I don't think affects Martinez. I just think it gives Warrington a boost in confidence. I don't think Martinez is going to go, oh, I've lost to this guy before. You know, Martinez has lost a lot, and then he come forward and did that against Kid Galahad. It's not going to affect him. He's clearly just loves to just go in the ring and just fight. You know, he's just going to come and turn up. And like you said, he's not going to be get out there easy. He's made out of EU, Brexit, Spanish, whatever nails. He's very hard. But I think we will see somewhat of the return of the old Josh Warrington there. Like you said, how much did Lara take out of him? I personally think not too much. I think while you said we're slightly wrapping up on Josh Warrington, I think we could see a few more good Warrington performances. I think he could still end up a unified champion. Actually, some people are really down on him. I just still thought he was a really classy operator before the Lara fights, and I think it's easy to say, well, it looks like that was gone. The first Lara fight, like it's easy to say inactivity, but probably did play a role. And the fact he, you know, even with the inactivity, if you take back to when he had his last like really hard fight that he probably was like 100% on it for training for, that's probably back to Frampton, which was a good few years before. So I think, you know, you can make a case that was an inactive Warrington that was far from his best, and maybe the lack of crowd. You know, we saw some fighters that really kind of spooked them almost. You know, they just didn't sit with them. No crowd didn't quite hype them up. Then the second Lara fight, like he still didn't look great. As I said, he probably had a lot of nerves. Obviously, there was the crowd there for that one, but it was still only a couple rounds. Like I don't think it's right to judge Warrington too harshly from those rounds. You saw he might have grown into the fight as he gained in confidence, because it's someone he has previously been knocked out by. Yeah. I wouldn't blame him in the first couple of rounds if he was just thinking, God, I just really don't want to lose this, and maybe just those first couple of rounds just try and almost survive. So yeah, I am more positive on Josh Warrington than a lot of people are right now. I know that, like I recognize that probably more people are down on him than are up on him. But I do think he is still a classy operator, and I think he will win this fight, and that will bring him his confidence back. I do think it is a lot of a mental thing, like I kind of alluded to there with the second Lara fight. So I think once he wins this, gets that belt back, he will feel confident again. We will see a bit more of the old Josh Warrington. Will he be as good as before? That's hard to say, but I think he'll be I think he'll be a unified champion in the. I think he can go and give anyone a hard night. You know, as I said, with that kind of that come forward pitbull style, he's just going to put it on people. And
yeah,
you know, I think he could just do some good things with his career still. I like, as I said, I like Josh Warrington. I just think he's a good fighter, and I don't see why he couldn't be good again.
There we go. Right, I've taken up enough of your evening, Laurence. I massively appreciate it. Final shout out for Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat. Tell people where they can find you, can find them.
Right, ESBR Boxing or Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat. Just search either Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, just everywhere. Myself, Laurence Gill, you'll see me kind of tagged in those tweets, so I'm sure you'll be able to find me around kind of boxing Twitter. As I said, I love talking boxing. This has been great fun. As I said, I'm happy to just talk anything. I think you can see I went on a few monologues there because I genuinely just love talking about boxing and kind of vocalizing my thoughts about what I think is going to happen. I like to hear other people's opinions about it as well and kind of see how other people think. So yeah, if you like talking boxing, and if you've listened all this way, I'd like to think that you do because you've listened to us talking about it. I think Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat is a great place for that. And like I said, you get that variety of content there. It's not just interviews or it's not just analysis. It's a lot of different things. It's kind of quite similar to pitch boxing, actually, in a way. You know, you get things like this and the interviews. But yeah, if you like talking boxing and you want to hear more of that, and you know, personally in my life, for a while, a few years ago, I thought, I wish there was more just kind of like boxing debate. You know, I feel like you didn't just see enough people. I loved talking with my mates, like, who do you think is going to win this? How do you rate this division? X, Y, Z, you know. And a while ago, I think that there wasn't as much of that. And I think we're getting a bit more now on YouTube I think that's caught up almost, whereas other sports that was really big even a few years ago, there wasn't as much on boxing. And now I feel like Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat and other places like this are kind of leading the way of just discussion, debate, punditry. I think boxing fans love that. I feel like boxing fans are so opinionated.
Yeah.
And everyone's so opinionated in boxing fans, and they love debating their opinion, talking about it, hearing what other people think, hearing the debates, hearing the arguments. So here, Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat, Twitter, listen to it, join in with it. Let's, as boxing fans, let's enjoy the sport and make it better through the debate. Why not?
Brilliant, love it, Laurence. Take care, my friend. Thank you so much for joining in.
No bother. Thank you very much. It's been great.
Take care, man.